Michael Andretti was in trouble again, ending his workout disqualified. The former Indy champion having driven only 4 participating laps in 3 races. Today, under pressure, Andretti moved into 6th position on the 3rd row. McLaren star Ayrton Senna found the wall inviting in today's practice and ended 2 seconds behind that man Prost. Senna damaged the rear part of his car after only 2 laps. Prost again dominated the session, even though Damon Hill pursued hard for most of it. The San Marino Grand Prix expected to be a red-letter one for Prost, but that depends very much on the weather.
Well, AJ, let's now just have a look at how they're going to line up tonight. Here's the grid.
Well, as you can see, the 2 Williams themselves very close. Only tenths of seconds separate them, but then 2 seconds to the next row of the grid, which is Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Aero Ford engine and Ayrton Senna in the normal Ford engine. And Carl Wendlinger continues to impress on 5th position with Michael Andretti in 6th position in the McLaren. Blundell, very good result from in the Ligier. Berger and Alesi in the 2 Ferraris. Brundle in the other Ligier. Patrese and Herbert bring up the final grid there with a 1:25.11, which is some 3 odd seconds slower than the Williams. Well, now as we go into this race, the World Drivers' Championship, as Ayrton Senna leads it with 26 points from 2 wins, from Alain Prost 1 win 14. Damon Hill in 3rd place. Mark Blundell and Johnny Herbert equal 4th, and Michael Schumacher 6th with 4 points.
AJ, the big rumour around the paddock overseas at San Marino right over the weekend is that Michael Andretti may be under some pressure to lose the drive.
Well, I think he'd be under a lot of pressure, because don't forget that there's a little Swedish driver, or Finnish driver, that's just hanging in the wings that was going to take over from Senna if Senna wasn't going to drive. Yes. And he is there poised, and I'm sure that Ron Dennis will be saying, you know, well, here we go now, we're having a couple of incidents, and, you know, this, I mean, okay, I think it's bad luck. I really do believe he's just having a bad luck run, but he's having little losers and making lots of little mistakes. There's another one now, gets it up on the curb, loses it, writes the rear wing off. No real structural damage to the car, I don't believe, but certainly not the thing that Ron Dennis likes to see, and, you know, I don't know, I think he's under an enormous amount of pressure right at the moment.
Well, it's a strong rumour. People are talking that Mario's been brought over to try and settle him down. I mean, you did say at the beginning of all of this talk of Andretti going over there, even when Mario was in the hotel at Surfers, when we were talking in that particular round, the first Grand Prix of the year, you were saying that he had to adapt to the European system. He had to adapt to the European fervour of racing. I'm just wondering if that's sort of going against him.
Well, it is different. I mean, you know, racing in Europe is different. It's a whole different mentality. It's a different schooling. People come up with different thought process, and most of the people that he's racing against have done Formula 3, Formula 3000, they've raced on the circuits, and of course now he's going into a catch-22 situation, because he'd be almost in that panic mode. Gee, I've got to do something right soon, otherwise I'm going to lose this drive. And that's exactly what makes you make mistakes. Yeah. So I really do feel sorry for him.
All right, we'll keep you up to date the best way we can with Michael Andretti. Mario, of course, was over for the European Grand Prix, and he's been flitting back and forth trying to settle his son down. We'll take a break, come back with all the action from San Marino. Stay with us, Australia. Rev it up, little boy, and ride. Welcome back. You're looking at the cars out on the circuit now. They are wearing wet weather tyres, and there is some damp and a bit of spray around.
There is, and that's great, because we can look forward to Senna making another one of his brilliant starts, hopefully. Now, the rain has just about stopped, so what will be uppermost in his mind will be trying to do a fabulous start and get as big a gap as he possibly can, because if he has to come in and go on to dries, he knows that the Williams is going to be far superior. But if he can build up a really good gap whilst it's in those semi-wet conditions, that could very well put him in good stead for later on.
AJ, you've been there before. Does the rain hang around in this part of the world? I mean, is it likely to sort of come in and out like we've seen?
No, not as much, but it is a circuit where you can actually have it damp on one side and fairly dry on the other. It's because of its undulating countryside.
Well, you can see the spots of water there on the lens coming out of the helicopter as you look down on it. So there's still a bit of dampness around as the chopper takes a good look at the circuit.
This is amazing, you know, that we've had these sort of wet races, because really and truly it's been a lay-down misere for Prost or Hill in those Renault Williams. I mean, they enjoy something like about a 70 horsepower advantage over the Ford engines. But, of course, they can't use that if it's wet. And it's incredible the way we've had 3 wet races on the trot, which has allowed Senna to bring the driving into play.
And Senna's refused to sign up on a permanent basis. It's still a drive-to-drive, a race-to-race deal, waiting for Ford to give him the better engine that Benetton have.
Well, there's rumours over the weekend. In fact, it was announced that he has signed up, now for the year. But I don't really believe that is the case. I believe he's playing politics. I think he's trying to get Ford to make a move to supply him with a good engine. Funnily enough, Ron Dennis has even offered Benetton some of the technology, some of the tag technology, the active suspension to go on their car if they will agree to let Ford give Ayrton the aero engine sooner. So politics are really coming into play, and I think Ayrton is using that as saying, well, look, unless you make up your mind and give me an engine, I might just stop.
Tom Walkinshaw, the man that they've got to deal with there?
Well, he'd be the one that'd be making it difficult, that's for sure.
Yeah. In the box position, Walkinshaw is somebody we know pretty well in Australia because he's had a lot to do with the development of the Holdens the last 3 or 4 years.
Or lack of it.
And came out here from a Ford man. Came out here, of course, with the Jag. It was the first time that we'd had anything to do with Tom Walkinshaw. Okay, gridded up now. So time to go across to our 2 commentators, the voice of Grand Prix racing, Murray Walker, and his big sidekick, James Hunt.
Everybody easing up into position. The last man who's going to come up onto the grid is Fabrizio Barbazza, the Italian in the Minardi. Away they go. Minimum wheel spin with traction control. Cross leads away. Damon Hill comes right up alongside him. Damon Hill is challenging, but he's at left-hand corner, and Prost should get through before they come up to the right-handed Villeneuve bend. Senna is already up into 2nd position.
And that was Olivier spinning, I think. And it looked like Blundell's helmet. So a very short race for Mark Blundell.
Damon Hill leads. Senna has got ahead of Prost. Senna has got ahead of Schumacher. And there you see a spinning wheel. And I think it was Martin Brundle out of the race as they fight. And that's the Benetton of Riccardo Patrese. You can see how slippery the conditions are. But it's Damon Hill leading. It is Ayrton Senna in 2nd position, and Hill goes off. And this will give Senna a chance to close up. Prost is 3rd. Schumacher is 4th. It's one of the Ferraris in 5th position, and they're tiptoeing round the course. Riccardo Patrese has stalled his car and is out of the race, and that's terrible news for the Italian because he's not in very good odour at Benetton, but Damon Hill leads. Senna 2nd. Prost is 3rd. Schumacher is 4th. In 5th position, it is Gerhard Berger. In 6th position, it looks like Karl Wendlinger.
That's a very good start to the race by Damon Hill. He made his little mistake there, but seemed to gather it all up. And Hill was a bit unlucky not to get his first pole here yesterday. He rode up on his very quickest lap by a slower car, and he only missed it by slightly under 1/10 of a second to Alain Prost. But he's been driving with great assurance. In these conditions, he's certainly got a lot more confidence about them than the ultra-experienced Alain Prost. So Damon Hill stretching away a little bit from Ayrton Senna, and Senna with Prost behind him, but not close enough to challenge. Yellow flags, of course, they can't overtake at that point.
Well, Damon Hill driving superbly, but what a marvellous start by Ayrton Senna. As you can see, Michael Schumacher is in 4th position. One of the Benettons out already. One of the Ligiers that are... Now, here's a replay, and Senna charging, weaving to the left and right behind Hill.
Senna looking way through the tire, the wheels bouncing down the road, and that, the Ligier, we saw go, and we didn't see what happened to Patrese, but it appears that he spun and stalled the engine, and really that he's having a dreadful season, Patrese, and he really ought to think about retiring.
So Damon Hill already nearly 2 seconds ahead. As I said earlier on, he is now calm and relaxed, having proved himself in the Williams team with those two superb 2nd places in the 2 previous races. And now the fight is between Senna for 2nd place with Alain Prost right behind him, as Schumacher in 4th position, then Gerhard Berger 5th, Wendlinger 6th, but Andretti has kept going 7th. Jean de Lacy is in 8th position, and the Ligier, and I'm still trying to check whether it is Martin Brundle or Mark Blundell who's gone off. It's Mark Blundell who went off because Martin Brundle is in 9th position. So this time, Blundell has had the hard luck. We're on lap 3 now, and there's 61 lap race, and Prost is shaping up to challenge Ayrton Senna. And we're watching all the time to see whether the course is drying out and whether a dryish line is starting to emerge.
Yes, it is drying a bit, Murray. Apart from anything else, the lap times have come down. And Prost was coming right up to Senna before they hit the flat-out Tamburello curve, but not flat-out for Prost in these conditions. And he was losing out to Senna through there, and therefore denying himself a chance of challenging at the end of the straight. But as the circuit dries, I'm sure Senna won't be able to fend him off for very long.
So, race order, Damon Hill leading. In 2nd position, Ayrton Senna. 3rd is Prost. 4th is Schumacher, and we're with Prost now as he tries to catch and pass the McLaren Ford of Ayrton Senna ahead of him. Now, this is great stuff, because Prost is alleged not to like the wet. He says he doesn't mind it when it's damp, and it's damp rather than wet now. They're coming down to the Rivazza now. This is about 95 miles an hour in 3rd gear. That's the first left-hander. This is the second. From here, they come up to the Variante Bassa, the right-hander that they're approaching. Then there's a left, and then there's a right, and they will be then completing the lap. With Hill leading, Senna 2nd, Prost 3rd. You can see the battle. Schumacher is 4th, Berger is 5th, Wendlinger is in 6th position, Andretti is 7th, Alesi is 8th, Martin Brundle is in 9th place, Johnny Herbert is 10th, Leto is 11th, so he's come up a good few places. Felipe Alio is in 12th position, and Prost is going through, but not if Senna can stop him. Senna closes the door as they sweep round the Tamburello. Prost.
Tremendous stuff there. Prost having a go using the power of the Renault to just simply out-drag Senna from the last corner into the Tamburello, but Senna, I think, was taking the Tamburello still with his foot flat to the floor. Prost was lifting, and Senna able to get back in front of them. But of course, when the circuit does eventually dry out, it won't be the same problem for Prost. He'll be able to keep his foot flat down to the floor and sweep past him on the straight, I'm sure.
But now Damon Hill is some 4 seconds ahead of this battle for 2nd place, because there's no doubt about the fact that Ayrton Senna, with less power than Alain Prost that we're riding with now, is holding up the Frenchman, and that is giving Damon Hill the chance to pull away. And he's leading a Grand Prix for the first time for reasons other than a tyre change. He led in Donington, of course, but that was when Prost or Senna ahead of him had come in for tyres. And he led for a time in Brazil on the tyre change basis, but now he's out there on his own on real merit ahead of this battle, and behind Alain Prost that we're with, some 5 seconds behind, is Schumacher in the Benetton. So once again, Senna will be emphasising when this race finishes that it is his skill that is keeping the McLaren ahead of the Benetton, and they're both using the same type of Ford engine.
And Senna, this time Prost doesn't have a go. Sitting behind him, looking to have a go under braking here for the Tosa corner, but he's not quite close enough. That's a very good view from the onboard camera. Let's hope we see plenty of Senna while we've got the chance, while Prost is following him. But Prost, look at the power of the Renault engine taking him on the uphill drag. But Senna later on the brakes and on the better line into the corner, able to hold off the brakes longer than Prost, who was on the wetter bit, trying to get down the inside. And Prost certainly looking for a way past. Damon Hill, meanwhile, very calmly and assuredly building his lead.
And that is off.
Mark, we saw you spinning off at what looked very high speed with that impact into the wall. Have you got any idea what happened?
Basically, I think it was running quite close behind De Lacy, and the car just lost downforce. And the rear of the car just broke away. It just sent me straight into the wall. There's nothing I could do about it.
So nobody hit you as far as you know?
I don't think so. I mean, it happened very quickly. It seems about just running very close to the Lacey and just like broke downforce and just snapped straight right angle into the wall.
Well, as you can see, we have a problem with the satellite. We have lost picture. We have our technicians, there's an army of them at the moment, working on it to re-establish that for you. We'll take a break, hopefully have pictures when we come back. Back, as you can see, Hill, Senna, Prost, Schumacher, Berger and Wendlinger. They are the top runners at 6 of 61. It's nice to have the satellite back, pictures re-established here. AJ, before we go back to Murray and James, two things I'd like to bring up quickly. The track is starting to dry, so they're going to go on to slicks pretty soon.
Yep, and I reckon if they do, Senna will be the first in. He always judges that extremely well. He's always the first in for slicks if it's drying, or he's the first in for wets if it's getting wet. And he really has to do something like that, because you can actually see the advantage that the Williams Renault has got. I mean, it is considerably quicker in a straight line, and the minute that Prost doesn't have to go or stay on the dry part of the circuit, he'll just use that superior power just literally to drive past Senna. So I would imagine that as soon as, look at that, I mean, that either Senna's in problem then, I mean, he must have missed a gear or something, but I mean, just to be able to pass him up in that short space like that, there's, you know, as I said, he's enjoying about 70 horsepower more.
Second point, Murray's made mention that Schumacher and Senna have the same engines. That's not quite correct.
No, they're not. In fact, that's what the whole business is about. I mean, you know, Senna's bluing. He's saying that, you know, I'm the superior driver in a good car. If you want to win the World Championship, how about giving him that more powerful engine, quick, smart? Now that Prost has passed him, and he really hasn't got anything to lose as such, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him into the pits fairly shortly for slicks.
OK, comments from Alan Jones. Let's go back to Murray, Walker and James Hunt.
Can be very crucial.
Lap 7 now. Is Alain Prost going to be able to catch Damon Hill? Damon Hill leads him on the 7th lap out of 61 by 8 seconds. You can see the gap that's starting to develop between Prost in 2nd position now and Senna in 3rd place. Schumacher is dropping further and further back. There he's in 12th. He's 12 seconds now behind Alain Prost and ahead of Gerhard Berger. There is Berger. There is Wendlinger behind him, number 7, appropriately in 7th place, Michael Andretti. And he's now hopefully got his racing rhythm settled down in the McLaren Ford, overcome any nerves he may have had. And he is in 7th position ahead of Jean Alesi, the charging Frenchman. Wendlinger goes through and passes Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan Hart. So the little Brazilian has obviously got a problem, as you see the broken Ligier of Mark Blundell in the background. And now Andretti is challenging the man who has been his downfall in the last 2 Grand Prix, Austrian Karl Wendlinger in the Ilmor V10 powered Sauber. Now this is good stuff, because Wendlinger will be very aware of the fact that it is Andretti behind him. That distinctive red and white shape could only be Andretti or Senna, and he'll know it's not Senna. So Wendlinger will be worried about Andretti, and Andretti will certainly be very worried about Wendlinger, having received the Sauber at enormous velocity in the side of his McLaren at Brazil. And McLaren, we understand, are getting ready to receive somebody, and the somebody, I prophesy, will be Ayrton Senna in 3rd position, about a second behind Alain Prost as they go through to their 9th lap.
Yes, and I'm sure this is not too early by Senna. The slicks work all right on a greasy surface. They work just as well as wet, and where it's dry, and it is Ayrton Senna in the pits for the tyre stop. Now, this is absolutely crucial. They've got to do a really quick run and get Senna moving on those dries. And let's keep an eye on his time.
5.7 seconds, and as Senna exited the pit, Schumacher went through, and we'll soon see whether Schumacher is ahead of him. I think Schumacher has moved up into 3rd position in the Benetton. But Ayrton Senna should have an advantage now because there's a dry line. He is on slick tyres, and that means to say that Damon Hill and Prost should both come in now. Now's the time for them to come in. Ayrton Senna will have an advantage if he's judged the conditions right and if they do not come in. Well, there is Senna, and he is ahead of Schumacher. So it is Hill, Prost, Senna, Schumacher. That's the battle for third position, and that's how close it is. With behind Schumacher in fifth position, you just saw a flash of the Scarlet Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, and there's a Williams coming into the pits.
Yes, certainly Senna seems to be gaining on Schumacher in these, being on slick tyres, on these conditions. So he has changed not a moment too soon. In fact, maybe he could have got in a lap or so earlier, because we'll look at his lap time, but Senna is certainly going quicker. Hill still leads by company, and we've got Prost in the pits. Alain Prost. And not a good getaway. Lost a lot of time on the getaway there. Now, where is Senna? Senna is just appearing. He's going to be behind Prost as he goes by, but he'll have a lap of experience on the circuit in these conditions, and will have felt his tyres, and Schumacher in, and one of the Ferraris. So it's all happening.
It's Gerhard Berger, and on lap 10 now, Damon Hill is leading, and you can see that the Ferrari, as he stalled it, the steering wheel is off. Is this a retirement? Indeed it is. Oh, Gerhard Berger retires on lap 10 of the 61-lap San Marino Grand Prix to join Riccardo Patrese and Mark Blundell of the front runners, with Damon Hill now leading Alain Prost by 25 seconds, but remember that Prost has made a pit stop. Senna is third, just 2 seconds behind Prost. Andretti is up to fourth. Alesi in the Ferrari, fifth. Martin Brundle is in sixth position. Johnny Herbert is up to seventh place in the Lotus. Schumacher is eighth, and JJ Leto in the Sauber is ninth.
Yes, well, Senna's first flying lap, and he's got past Prost. And Jonathan and Senna just going away. He's got past Prost, and he's making good advantage of the dry conditions. And Jonathan has got Gerhard Berger.
Gerhard, what was the problem? No, I tell you what, he's getting back in the car.
Right, okay, he's getting back in his car. So Gerhard has suddenly changed his mind. Now, Senna did indeed use his knowledge of the dry track to get onto the to get past Prost, but it just shows that even Senna, who was first in at the routine tyre stops, was the first to change. In fact, his very first lap out, his standing lap, was his fastest lap of the race, which means that even he changed too late. Could have changed a lap or two earlier, and because he's going to have to go a bit to get himself in a position that's ahead of Damon Hill. Senna now the fastest lap of the race, 1:37, lapping about 3 seconds quicker than Damon Hill.
You've just seen Michael Andretti leaving the pits, now in 8th position. Well, this race is turning out to be another Donington. The tyre changes are going to make it truly dramatic. Damon Hill is leading on lap 11 by 24 seconds. Ayrton Senna second. Prost is 1 second behind the Brazilian in third place. 14 seconds ahead of Alesi, who is fourth. Brundle is fifth. Schumacher is sixth. Here is the race leader, who has lapped Rubens Barrichello.
And I'm sure Damon will be coming in this time. Let's see. Yes, Damon straight into the pits. So Damon Hill making his stop. He would have had to wait for Prost to have made his. Now, will he emerge in the lead? Senna certainly lapping much more quickly than he was for the last lap and a half. But Damon had quite a lead. We shall see. Now, Damon Hill out of the pits. And Senna hasn't been by yet.
Yes, he has. He's just this moment blasted past the window, and by my reckoning, because he disappeared where the bricks are, he has gone into the lead as Hill. There he is. There is Ayrton Senna, and behind him, no, Damon Hill leads. Senna second. Prost right up behind them in third position. This is really riveting stuff. Round the left-hander, towards the Tosa, and into the pit lane comes Gerhard Berger again.
Oh no, there was a three-way race going up the hill. That's Alesi in the pits, but we had to cut to a Ferrari, of course. But we had a three-car battle. Prost was ducking out, and what's happened? And it is Prost leading. Prost, as they both got past Damon Hill, Senna second, and Prost took advantage of that very well. So first, second, and third, all covered by a handkerchief.
So Prost leads. Now there is Damon Hill in third position. Ayrton Senna has eased away just a little as they fought their way through the traffic. Remember, this is something that is still fairly strange to Damon Hill, fighting his way through traffic in a much more powerful motor car. Prost is used to it, Senna is used to it. They're used to fighting each other, and they're certainly doing that now on lap 12. With both of them on slick tyres. The course is getting drier and drier. The line is getting wider and wider. You can see that pale grey line as opposed to the darker colour, slightly shiny to the sides, left and right. And Prost now is getting the hammer down. He's using those 800 Renault horsepower to the full. He's coming up behind Christian Fittipaldi in the evil handling Minardi. They've had a lot of downforce problems in practice, and he has now lapped the young Brazilian, pulling away from Ayrton Senna. That's the gap, just over 2 seconds. Now Damon Hill will try and get ahead of the 3-times world champion. In fourth position, it's Schumacher, 22 seconds behind third place Damon Hill. Fifth is Wendlinger in the Sauber. Sixth is Michael Andretti, comfortably in the points, so that makes 2 Williams and 2 McLarens in the top 6 with the Sauber of Wendlinger.
Yes, and you can actually see the superiority of the Williams cars on this track, the tremendous power advantage that they enjoy, quite apart from their wonderful chassis and the way it handles. Looking now from Damon Hill's car, and that's Alain Prost going through. There's Damon Hill with the Minardi just protecting Senna's rear. Christian Fittipaldi from Damon Hill, but Damon's can play himself in a bit gently, get used to these conditions. There's plenty of time, because as soon as he wants to get close behind Senna here at the slow corner onto the main straight, then he will be able to sweep past him down the straight using the Williams tremendous straight line speed. He's dropped back a little bit in the traffic, but he has every reason to take it gently, because he's got plenty of time.
And the lap times now have come down to about 1 minute 33 seconds for the leaders. That's an indication of the fact that the course is getting drier and drier. And you're looking now at the LaRousse of Eric Comas, and he's about to be lapped by Damon Hill as Senna eases away through the traffic. And Michael Schumacher is quickest now. 1 minute 32 makes as near as no difference. And that compares with the pole position time by Alain Prost of 1 minute 22. So they're still 10 seconds off the pole position time. Not forgetting, of course, that when you're racing for the grid, you use a lot less fuel in the tank and therefore less weight. Senna now second, Prost leads, Senna second, Hill third, and 3 seconds separates the first to third. Schumacher is fourth, Wendlinger is fifth, Andretti is sixth, followed by Alesi 7, Brundle 8, Leto 9, and Johnny Herbert. It completes the top 10 on lap 14.
Well, as you might imagine, there's been an absolute frenzy of activity down here in the pit lane with all of those pit stops, but amongst it, I saw the most bizarre thing I've seen, I think, in the pit lane with Gerhard Berger. He came into the pits, jumped out of the car, told me he had a clutch problem, and just as he was about to speak to us, somebody clearly told him that the car was runnable, and he leapt back in and went out again with the car by that time back in the garage. Quite extraordinary.
New fastest lap, there it is, Alain Prost, 1 minute 30.427. You look at the leader as Ayrton Senna sweeps round to complete another lap. That's Damon Hill in third position, lapping Eric Comas's LaRousse as they go round the left-hander at the Tosa and climb up towards the Piratella.
Yes, and that was rather a smoky-looking LaRousse too. I hope that's not complicating the issue further by chucking oil all over the circuit. And Senna is holding on fairly well to Alain Prost. Schumacher, since he changed tyres, Prost has actually gone a bit quicker than this lap, but Schumacher's been the quickest man on the circuit since the tyre stops, but he's still quite a long way away. He's 19 seconds behind Hill.
Meantime, behind this lot, Martin Brundle is having a big battle with J.J. Leto's Sauber for 9th position. Now, there is Schumacher, followed by Wendlinger. Schumacher in 4th position, Wendlinger in 5th place. So the Austrian is driving a superb race. Michael Schumacher in the new B193 Benetton, the car that was introduced at Donington. They're doing a lot of work on it between races and getting it settled down. That is Wendlinger in the yellow helmet and the black car, 5th position. Michael Andretti is in 6th position, holding on. He has now done 15 laps. That's the longest Grand Prix distance by far that the American has done, and he's looking good for a top 6 first points finish as the Benetton and the Sauber. Now, that is Derek Warwick, who is about to be lapped in the footwork car, and incidentally, we had a dramatic announcement yesterday that the footwork team are going to use the TAG McLaren active suspension system as soon as they possibly can. They've done a deal with Ron Dennis of McLaren, and that should make the new FE14 footwork Mugen even better than it is now. So, Schumacher trying to get past Derek Warwick, which gives Wendlinger in 5th position. There he is, the opportunity to close up on the German ahead of him, young Michael Schumacher, 23 years old, and Wendlinger is 25, and Alain Prost is the first man under 1 minute 30 seconds. It's getting drier and drier and better, and Derek Warwick continues to occupy the place on the track that both Michael Schumacher and Karl Wendlinger would like to have. They're coming through to complete the lap, and it's here that Schumacher should be able to get past, because they're on the fastest part of the course now, approaching the Villeneuve curve, 200 miles an hour, as you look at the Ferrari of Jean Alesi chasing Michael Andretti's McLaren.
Yes, and they're only 2 or 3 seconds away from dry times now. And as a result of that, Senna has fallen back a little bit. He's closer to Hill than he is to Prost now. As Prost is through.
And this is the race order as you watch race leader Alain Prost coming through to complete a lap. He is some 4 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, second. Hill is third, 4 seconds behind the Brazilian, but 22 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is fourth. Wendlinger is fifth, 1 second behind Schumacher. Andretti in the second McLaren is sixth. Alesi is seventh. Brundle is eighth. Ninth is Leto. 10th is Johnny Herbert. 11th is Philippe Alliot. 12th is Zanardi in the second Lotus. Then Barbatza is 13th. Comas 14th. Suzuki 15th. And so on. De Cesaris, Warwick 17th. Bader, Katayama and Barrichello. Fittipaldi is the last driver still running in 21st place. 4 retirements. Alain Prost is fastest so far. 1 minute 29.175. He's on his 18th lap. You look at Schumacher, who has made better use of the traffic. He's got ahead of Derek Warwick. And Warwick has still got, has he? What he's got behind him now, Andrea De Cesaris. I think it's certainly one of the Tyrrells as they go up from the Tosa to the Piratella, where they turn left. They're doing about 155 miles an hour as they plunge down to the Acqua Minerale. There is Warwick. Behind him is Wendlinger in 5th position. So Schumacher really used the traffic intelligently as Michael Andretti in the red and white McLaren comes up to try and take Andrea De Cesaris, number 4, the Italian in the Tyrrell, who's about to be lapped. He is in 16th position. Well, Alain Prost now is starting to build the cushion that he wants. He is nearly 6 seconds ahead of Senna. He is notably faster because he's just gone round 1.7 seconds faster than the Brazilian in the McLaren Ford. There he is. There's Damon Hill. Now, Damon Hill has closed the gap. It's down to 2.1 seconds between himself and Ayrton Senna as they climb up to the Piratella. There is Prost going into the Aqua Minerale. You can see the gap between himself and the second place man. There's Senna, who has got to pass Barrichello and Zanardi, who have just gone through in respectively the Jordan Hart and the Lotus. Damon Hill. Now, they go up to the Variante Alta, which is the highest part of the course. From here, they start to drop down. That's Damon Hill, and he's got Ayrton Senna in his sights now. The gap is coming down all the time.
Yes, and Senna's got traffic ahead. He'll want to get past that before he gets onto the main straight and try and put the traffic between him and Damon Hill. If he gets held up before the straight, Hill will be able to sweep past him on the straight. He's coming down towards the end of the lap, and he's Zanardi making an outbraking manoeuvre there. That will have slowed things down. He goes past Barrichello, and Senna is now, well, he'll get the benefit of a tow from them. He'll be able to slipstream the slower cars ahead of him and use their hole in the air, which will help him fend off Damon Hill, but Hill coming up quickly. Well, Senna holds it, and Zanardi and Barrichello having a very big private battle of their own, and whoops, and Damon Hill just avoided it, I think. I didn't see contact there, and that must have been a heart-stopping moment for Damon Hill. An innocent victim he would have been had he been taken out there, but I think he just avoided the spinning Barrichello, and Barrichello stuck on the grass, and that won't help him. Here we see it again. Now, Zanardi goes back inside Barrichello. They both go wide too quickly. Senna nips through Damon Hill to get so nearly connected.
Barrichello just put his rear wheels on the damp part of the circuit. The Jordan broke away, and his front wheels are off the ground now, and he's out of the race because I think he's stalled his engine, and he's not allowed to be push-started anyway, and that is rotten luck for the Brazilian, because he drove brilliantly at Donington. He drove extremely well in the qualifying sessions here. And actually, his Jordan Hart yesterday in a straight line was the second fastest car of all, over 200 miles an hour. A tribute to Brian Hart and his technicians, because their new V10 engine is only in its 4th race. So, there is Senna. Now, Zanardi is in 11th place and has been lapped by both Prost and Senna. He's got Damon Hill in 3rd position behind him, looking for a way past and making sure he keeps on the dry. Zanardi moves over onto the wet bit and lets Damon through. And off goes, well, how on earth did he do that? Damon Hill is out of the race, a retirement on lap 21. There'll be a replay. James, you'll be able to tell us what happened in your opinion. But Damon Hill looks to me as though he just threw that away by taking the wrong line. And you can see it's on the same corner, the Tosa corner, and Damon Hill retires from the San Marino Grand Prix that he might well have won.
Yes, really a great pity that, but we'll have a look at a replay, but it looked to me as if he just simply got on the wet bit and slithered straight off. He was going just a little bit too quickly and didn't hold it in tight. The same slithery bit that caught Zanardi, that caught Barrichello out the lap before, except he seemed to lose the front end of the car, did Damon Hill, and just understeered straight off. Now here we see what he's doing. Well, it's just understeered off, just didn't get any grip at the front. And he will regret that, but it's all part of the learning experience, and to be fair, he's doing jolly well so far for one's own experience. In the meantime, Prost, new fastest lap, he's put in, and his lead over Senna is now 10.5 seconds. So, not much excitement up at the front. That's Derek Warwick, just in front of Michael Andretti. And Michael Andretti, who's in well, will have moved up to 5th place now, having giving a bit of a wave to Warwick. He feels Warwick, he's lapping Warwick, of course. He feels Warwick should let him through. And Michael Andretti having his first proper race of his Formula One career. He's now settled in, laid himself in properly, and headed at the moment for some points.
Well, Alain Prost, who was the first man to get under 1 minute 30 seconds for a lap, has now just gone round in 1 minute 27.656, which is the fastest lap of the fastest lap of the race so far, and that is about 1.5 seconds slower than Riccardo Patrese's all-time lap record at Imola, which he did in a Williams. Well, last year, Nigel Mansell in the Williams dominated the race, followed by Riccardo Patrese very strongly. Ayrton Senna finished literally an exhausted third because he was slumped in the cockpit of the McLaren. The race was some 2 or 3 weeks later last year, and it was a lot hotter. And Senna, in his frantic efforts to keep up in the very heavy V12 Honda engined McLaren, exhausted himself and couldn't even get up onto the podium. Now, Alain Prost is very much out on his own on lap 23 out of 61, and you saw there the racing line as dry as a bone through the Acqua Minerale as Prost now comes up to the Variante Alta with an ever-increasing lead. Now, Michael Schumacher has moved up into 3rd place. Wendlinger is now in 4th place. Michael Andretti is 5th. Jean Alesi in the Ferrari is in 6th position. 7th is Martin Brundle. 8th is J.J. Leto. In 9th position is Johnny Herbert as Andretti comes up to lap Derek Warwick.
Nice to have your company right around Australia. Lap 23 of 61, Prost, Senna, Schumacher, Wendlinger, Andretti and Alesi. So Ferrari finally getting up into the top runners here. 2 things, AJ. Damon Hill, I mean, at first look at that, it looked like something broke in the car, the way it went off.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure, but I think he might have just gone in a little bit too deep and lost the front end on the wet part of the track. This is interesting. Look at Andretti. I mean, this is the 3rd lap that he's waving at Derek Warwick. And I mean, okay, fair enough, Warwick may be being a little bit naughty because I think Andretti has a lap on him, but, you know, all I can say is welcome to Grand Prix racing. No one's going to move over and say, yes, Mr. Andretti, go for your life.
Apart from that, though, some of the antics of the slower drivers hasn't been all that good in this race.
No, there've been a couple of them have been a bit naughty. They, quite frankly, just haven't looked in their mirrors and they haven't realised that the faster cars have been coming up, and we've seen a couple of real close shaves. But, you know, that was interesting. I mean, Warwick's saying, basically, if you want to get past Pal, you earn it. I'm not moving over and waving you through. And, you know, Michael was waving in sort of 3 laps in a row. But, yeah, I think that's just part of the experience. That's what he's going to get used to in Formula One.
Take you back to the San Marino race with Murray and James.
Who is in 9th position, ahead of his teammate, Sandro Zanardi. So what Prost is looking for, of course, is reliability and the ability to just keep going, and he's doing so now.
And that was Johnny Herbert, so just ahead of Prost there, so Prost is closing in to lap Herbert. In the meantime, he has a 12-second lead over Senna. And I think Prost is already easing up a little bit on the pace. He's happy with that size of a lead. We'll see what this lap is. We'll see how he won't quite catch Herbert before they get to the line, I don't think. So things fairly straightforward now for Alain Prost. It's a matter of working on reliability, looking after his car, being gentle with it. Stroking it home. Now we'll see what lap time he does. Senna, he realises it'll be a vain pursuit and a new fastest lap for Prost, so he's not slowed up enormously. But he's still extending the lead.
Yes, he's 1.6 seconds this lap faster than Ayrton Senna, and if the past is anything to go by, I imagine Senna's attitude now in the cockpit of the McLaren Ford, and don't forget he's in second place. He's got nothing to be distressed about, except that he would like to be first, but his attitude will be, I have no doubt, I will continue to go as fast as I possibly can, in the knowledge that the worst I'm going to finish is second, and if I can pressure possible, I will finish in the lead, because the gap between himself and Prost is now some 14 seconds as Schumacher passes the Larousse of Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman, who is in 12th position and lapped. Now that's Fittipaldi going off in the Minardi, and behind him I saw a McLaren. It's Michael Andretti, but it looks to me as though the American must have avoided the Brazilian, otherwise we would have stayed with that replay longer. And Michael Schumacher now coming through the Acqua Minerale. He is on his 26th lap. We're not yet at half distance in the San Marino Grand Prix, round 4. And something that you should bear in mind is that even if Senna did not finish this race, he would still be in the lead of the World Championship when we go to the next race, which is at Barcelona in Spain in 2 weeks' time, because he has a 12-point lead over Alain Prost. Senna has 26 points and Alain Prost has 14 points, and Prost will get 10 if he wins this race, so even if Senna got no points at all, he would still have a 2-point lead, and I suspect he's going to finish second, so he will still be very well placed. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. If Senna can get 6 points for second place, he'll find that very satisfying and more than he could have reasonably expected, because here in dry conditions he would expect a best effort of third, unless we have a Williams retirement. Well, we've had that, and that's moved him up a notch, although I'm quite sure he would have preferred the retirement to be Prost rather than Hill, because, of course, Prost will be more likely to accumulate lots of points during the season, and it's Prost who he'll be fighting for the championship.
Now, you just saw Aguri Suzuki in the second footwork car, and that is Michael Andretti going up the hill. We're on lap 27 now, and it's still Prost 15 seconds ahead of Senna, who's 40 seconds ahead of Schumacher, so Senna is, to the best of his ability, maintaining the pressure on the car in front of him, the Williams of Alain Prost, who, as you see, is going faster and faster. Now the first man under 1 minute 27 seconds. Bendlinger is in 4th position. It looks as though we're going to have a Sauber in the points again, and this is the team's first year of Grand Prix racing, a magnificent achievement if he stays there. Michael Andretti in the second McLaren is 5th, Jean Lacey is 6th, Brundle is 7th in the Ligier, Leto is in 8th position, and Johnny Herbert, who is 9th, has been lapped. 10th is Zanardi, 11th Barbazza, and in 12th position Philippe Alliot, and we ride now with Jean Lacey. You can never mistake his style in the Ferrari. Look how high he has his hands on the steering wheel. Watch his head as it comes into vision and then out of it. Now he's coming through to complete the lap as Alain Prost does the same thing.
Well, we got a bit of a funny pop from Senna's engine note as he went past here the last time round, but he was also doing his fastest lap of the race, so we think it's probably just a slightly faulty gear shift rather than any misfire on the engine. 16 seconds he trails Alain Prost, and looky, that's Martin Brundle taking that shortcut that seems so popular. We've seen it quite a lot at the Acqua Minerale. Just get it a bit wrong going in, but there's plenty of tarmac to catch them as they take that little shortcut. Just hope that Brundle didn't damage the under tray or anything on his car and can rejoin to do further battle.
Well, Senna's speeding up. He's just done 1:27.5 to the nearest 10th of a second, and Jonathan Palmer's got Damon Hill in the pit lane.
Damon, that looked absolutely bitterly disappointing. We saw the car apparently just go wide at Tosa. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I've been having some problems with the brakes, and Just that one time it caught me out, unfortunately, and I wasn't able to recover.
It was locking up the brakes for that corner, was it?
Yeah, it was a combination of the problem with the brakes and also pushing quite hard to make an impression on Senna.
Did you get on the wet line on the inside?
Yeah, well, I mean, the brake pedal was long, so I had a long brake pedal, so basically I had no choice but to try and straighten up as much as I could. I mean, I was running out of track, and obviously eventually I did run out of track.
Do you think you could have caught Senna?
Yeah, I definitely could have caught Senna, but I didn't.
Very hard luck indeed. Thanks, Damon.
Okay.
Well, to the inevitable humorist who says if he had a long pedal, why don't Williams make a shorter one? It means that he actually had to push the pedal further towards the bulkhead in order to make the brakes work. And poor Damon Hill out of the race, his second retirement in 4 Grand Prix. But I was saying that Ayrton Senna in a 1:27.5 has now got within 0.3 of a second of the all-time lap record by Riccardo Patrese in the Williams Renault. So Senna is keeping up the pressure, but he's still 18 seconds behind Alain Prost, and we're on the half-distance lap 30 now. 30 and a half laps is half-distance, to be pedantic, but Alain Prost is on his 30th lap now, leading Ayrton Senna in the McLaren, as you watch Wendlinger and behind him Michael Andretti fighting for 4th and 5th positions. There is the young Austrian who's settled down a lot. Now he's coming up behind Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver in the footwork, and Suzuki is in 13th place, about to be lapped by 4th place Carl Wendlinger, and that is Michael Andretti's McLaren Ford in 5th place. Wendlinger driving a fine race, and incidentally that proves the strength of the Ilmor V10 engine. And the news for Grand Prix racing enthusiasts is that the new heavily Mercedes-Benz backed Ilmor-designed Sauber V10 engine fired up on the test bench for the first time last week. And Mario Ilian of Ilmor was telling me that the results look promising. And if they get an even more powerful engine in the Sauber, it will really start to fly. So, exiting the Acqua Minerale, up towards the Variante Alta, where they go right and then left before plunging downhill, come Wendlinger, there in the black Sauber with the yellow mirrors. Right behind him in 5th place is Michael Andretti. In 6th position behind the American, it's Alesi in the Ferrari. 7th is still Martin Brundle, who could still score his first points of 1993 in the Ligier. 8th is Leto, and 9th, but lapped, is Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. Is comfortably missed by Alain Prost, but if he'd gone on and not kept to the left, that might not have happened. And the Suzuki is still ahead of Wendlinger, and Andretti in 5th place is still catching the Austrian. This is the exit to the Acqua Minerale, and they do about 185 miles an hour up this hill.
Yes, so the hold-up that Andretti got from Derek Warwick has now been repaid on Wendlinger, because that's who he's battling with, and Suzuki has brought Wendlinger back to him, although he was catching him anyway. But can Michael Andretti have a go at the Sauber? McLaren not particularly quick on the straight, running quite a lot of wing here. And of course this lap the Sauber will be getting the tow from Suzuki's footwork. So it'll be very difficult for Andretti to make any impression at all down this straight. And Derek Warwick. Now, what's happened to Derek Warwick? Clearly an accident, because the front end of the car is fairly knocked about.
So, Warwick out of the race. This is Andretti's opportunity, because as they come down from the Tamburello and the Piratella, he will be challenging. But meantime, the top 3 are now lapping within 1/10 of a second of each other, although there's quite a considerable gap between race leader Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, and in 3rd position Michael Schumacher. Prost has just gone round in 1:27.9, and I remind you that Patrese's lap record is 1:26.1. And still Suzuki holds up the Sauber of Wendlinger in 4th place and the McLaren of Andretti in 5th position. I'm surprised they can't get past.
Yes, well, it's a question of straight line speed, but that's Warwick's car being craned away, so he's clearly out of it. And let's hope he's all right. Didn't look like too big an accident. But now I'm wondering if we're going to get any tyre stops in this race now that we've changed to slicks after the opening wet bit, because had we had a completely dry race, everybody was planning to make one stop for tyres, and there's certainly a performance advantage by doing that, but whether it's enough to justify the time. Andretti getting closer to the Sauber, he's getting in position to have an attack, he's making his attack, and Andretti has got the inside line and made it very well, but he was slow out, and well, he got by beautifully, but he should maybe have slowed them up a little bit more in the middle of the corner, because he lost the ideal line and was going too quickly, went wide on the way out. There he is, sliding a bit on the slippery stuff, and Wendlinger had to swerve to avoid him. The back end of his car went a bit, so back to square one. But meanwhile, Suzuki still sits in front of them.
Andretti attacks again, and he's done it! He's done it! This is the 4th Grand Prix in succession when Andretti now, is he going to be able to keep going in the wet, because there's no traction on the grass there? He stops, and I hesitate to criticise, and I will respect your expert view, James, but it seems to me that Michael Andretti, like his famous father, Mario Andretti, is precipitate at times. Let's see what happened. He tries to go inside Wendlinger as they complete the lap, loses it altogether, goes over the grass to the left, over the curb, onto the grass, spins to a standstill, stalls his engine, and is out of his 4th Grand Prix. He's been further here than in any of the others, but not far enough.
Yes, and he's still finding life very difficult in Formula One. It's, I mean, I think really he should have kept the car running then, but there was clearly an element of panic. I think the mistake, the realization that he'd made another mistake got to him, because a man of his experience, albeit not in Formula One, but of his racing experience, really should have kept that car under control on the grass, not spun the rear wheels quite as much, and got it back onto the track. And certainly he shouldn't have stalled it. So a bitter disappointment for Michael. He's having a really torrid time. He's trying to do everything right, but I'm sure there is an element of anxiety as well. But as you say, Murray, quite rightly, his father had an element of impetuosity on the track that got him into trouble from time to time, and it seems to have been passed on to Michael. But we do all want to see Michael have a chance to have a proper race. Now, this is from another angle, trying to go inside. Now, that was really impetuous. There was no reason. That's the wrong place to try and pass, and he could and should have waited for the long straight and passed him in the same place that he did it last lap, because he'd shown that with the toe he could do it. And this was inexperience of tactics, and that's surprising, because with all his experience of racing in America, the tactics are similar, and really that was quite wrong to try and pass Wendlinger where he did.
Yes, James, whilst that undoubtedly was a mistake from Michael Andretti there, I do think there are mitigating circumstances, and that's that just about 30 seconds before that incident, the rain started to come down, and I do think he could have been wrong-footed by a wet track. It's raining relatively heavily now. It's coming down, and I think the cars will be being slowed up soon due to track conditions.
Yes, I certainly accept that, Jonathan, and I heard you call that it had started to rain, but at the same time, if it was enough to make it extra slippery, he will or certainly should have seen the rain on his visor and been aware that the rain was coming down. And again, that still doesn't excuse the placing of his attack, because he just showed himself that he could actually tow past the Sauber on the straight, and all he had to do was wait till they got back to the straight, position himself right, and get the toe and do it again. But this time with a bit more care of how he tackled Tozer, and that, I am certain, is what he should have done. So, whilst, yes, it was unfortunate the rain came down, I'm sure that it was the wrong place to try and pass.
So the Michael Andretti of Italian parentage out of the race. Not too bad news for the Tifosi, because the man you're looking at now, or were looking at, Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, moves up into 5th position ahead of Martin Brundle, who is in the points, ahead of JJ Leto, who is 7th, Johnny Herbert, who is 8th, Zanardi, who is 9th, Babazza, who is in 10th position, Philippe Alliot, who is in 11th place, as Alain Prost goes through and passes Carl Wendlinger. The Frenchman has got a beautiful rhythm going now. He passes Suzuki with no trouble at all, and remember how long it took Wendlinger to try and get past him, and he still hasn't succeeded. And so, as I was saying, it's Prost leading now 25 seconds ahead of Senna on the 37th lap.
And that really just shows what a nice thing it is to have all that extra horsepower that Prost's got available to him. It does make passing the traffic very much easier, especially on a circuit like this, with plenty of chance for cars to stretch their legs along these relatively long straights. But it is a problem for Wendlinger, because that Mugen engine's got plenty of power in the footwork, and it's given Alesi the chance to catch right up, you see, with the delay, and that will be very frustrating for Wendlinger. Now, he's in a good position to pick up a toe from the footwork this time. He's in the ideal place, and the Ferrari's coming up sharply behind him. This is the view from the cockpit of Alesi's Ferrari. Remember, they always have their cameras on the left. This is how you get into the draft and get the toe, and he's alongside, and I fancy Alesi's going to have it. He's got the line in, and Alesi moves up into 4th place. And Wendlinger will be pretty annoyed, I reckon, that he's been stuck so firmly behind Suzuki, because that's clearly cost him a place.
Yes, a tribute to the charging determination of Jean Alesi, who has to be one of the most spectacular drivers, if not the most spectacular driver of modern Grand Prix racing. And he's proving it, and there's going to be an enormous cheer when he goes through now in 4th position in the V12 Ferrari. And now let's see how he copes with Aguri Suzuki. We've seen what Carl Wendlinger did, or tried to do. Alesi pulls out, but Suzuki closes the door, which gives Wendlinger now in 5th position the opportunity to close up. It's still Prost leading on his 38th lap. Senna is 26 seconds behind the Frenchman now. Schumacher is 3rd, 25 seconds behind Senna. So there's 50 seconds between the leader, Prost, and Schumacher 3rd. And Prost has lapped Jean Alesi, who says, move over to the Japanese driver in front of him, who no doubt is saying, you make your own arrangements, mate, because I'm going to stick on my racing line. But if anybody can find a way past Suzuki, it will be Jean Alesi. Is he doing it? Yes, he is. No problem at all there. My goodness, really forceful driving. Now, Carl Wendlinger will see the way to do it. Incidentally, that's where Alesi tangled with Gerhard Berger last year. Berger in the McLaren, Alesi in the Ferrari.
Yes, of course, Alesi quite clearly has a little bit more straight line speed than Wendlinger. It may be that the Sauber team had put on a lot of extra wing to set the car up for a wet race, and didn't anticipate how quickly the track would dry and the weather would improve, and if that's the case, they've put him at quite a disadvantage. Because in the normal way, if it's going to be really wet, then the teams put their cars on a maximum downforce setting. They put as much wing as they can on, but that, of course, slows them down in a straight line. And Wendlinger was clearly markedly slower than the Ferrari. And I know the McLaren's running quite a lot of wing, and that's not very quick. And Michael Andretti was able to get past him on the straight with the help of a toe. Now, there's Alain Prost. We know the Williams Renaults were comfortably quickest on through the speed traps on all parts of the circuit with their power on Friday and yesterday. So no problem for Prost to sweep past these slower cars.
Well, somebody said to me yesterday, do you think Prost has still got it in him? And I said, well, I should think so. He won the South African Grand Prix. He started in pole position in South Africa and in Brazil and at Donington, and is going to here at Imola. I should think he can do the job all right. He's certainly proving so now, because although Senna is currently lapping marginally faster, there's still that 25-second gap.
And there is Martin Brundle, who's now caught Wendlinger. So Martin Brundle in 6th place, about to challenge Wendlinger for 5th. And I fancy Brundle's chances on the long straight when they complete the lap, start the next one, except that he's dropped back a little bit here. He needs to be a bit closer than that, but there's a bunch of traffic in front. It won't be to Brundle's disadvantage, and let's hope that Brundle is having a carbon copy of last season, because last year he got off to a bad start, retirements in the opening races, and then it was here that he started a run of very consistent point scoring, and he's very much on schedule for points here today, and still rain is around. You can see that the racing line is dry. Now, there's Wendlinger, there's Brundle, and he's probably not quite close enough this time. And of course, the other thing is that Wendlinger's got the chance. He's getting a tow from the cars ahead of him.
61, 20 to go. Prost, Senna, Schumacher, Alesi, Wendlinger and Brundle now into the top 6. AJ, the Ferrari, I can't get used to looking at the Ferrari with that white line. It looks very much like the Dallara did the last couple of seasons. I mean, Ferrari to me just should be just that plain red car.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think they've spoiled it. I hate that white stripe on it. Ferrari for me is all red. But hey, what a good dice going on here between Brundle and Wendlinger. I mean, they're really at it. I don't know... Brundle seems to have come on quite strong towards the latter part of the race. Now, whether Wendlinger's got some sort of problem, I don't know, but if we're a little bit lucky and the director stays on this dice, because they're really at it hammers and tongs.
And the hint of water is still about. It still could rain the next 20.
Well, yeah, and I hope it does, because if it does start to rain and they have to come in and put their wets back on, well, then it'll make it a bit more interesting vis-a-vis Senna and Prost.
Yeah, but Prost still got a very comfortable lead, even if that happens.
Yeah, he's got a 20-odd second lead, but if they came in, it'd be a great carrot for Senna, wouldn't it? Because he'd really get the eyes on and go for it.
OK, let's take you back down to Murray and Jones.
Yep.
Side Wendlinger, he's clean through with tremendous speed on the straight of the Ligier Renault, and into 5th place for Martin Brundle.
Well, I'm with Derek Warwick in the pits now. Derek, we saw on the television screens that you've got a few wheels off your car, or one wheel off the car. The car half.
Now, that's a Ferrari. That's a Ferrari. Sorry to interrupt you, Jonathan, but Jean Alesi, from 4th position, goes out of the San Marino Grand Prix as he did last year. I don't know why, because we suddenly cut to that picture, but for whatever reason, and it looks to me like the same corner, it's the exit from Tosa on the climb up to the Piratella. Now we're with him, and he's gone off, I think, at exactly the same place. He's climbing up towards the Piratella now and pulls off to the right. Now, we really need a whole shot of the car to see why he stopped. Helmet off. I don't think he went off. I suspect it was an engine problem, but he's out anyway.
Yes, it looked like he pulled off a mechanical failure, and that moves Martin Brundle up to 4th place. Prost still now 27 seconds ahead of Senna, and Jonathan has still got Derek Warwick in the pits.
Right, Derek, as we were saying, we saw on the TV screens that one corner of the car badly damaged. You half across the curves. Can you tell us what happened there?
Well, it started to rain, and I got it a little bit sideways going into the far chicane. It spun it, and then it spun round and went straight into the tyre wall and took off the right front.
Hard luck, Derek. Thanks for your help.
Cheers.
And there is the battle for what is now fourth place. So that looks like Senna out of the race, only surviving McLaren. And again, all the wheels are on the car, so it looks as if he's had some sort of mechanical failure.
Well, what a sensation. Ayrton Senna, who was in for a certain 6 points seemingly out of the San Marino Grand Prix. That will close the World Championship gap between himself and Prost if Prost finishes. And it means to say that Michael Schumacher moves up into second position. Martin Brundle is now in third position in the Ligier, ahead of a terrific scrap for fourth now between the two Sauber drivers. Wendlinger, who is fourth, right behind him Leto in fifth position, and a second British driver, Johnny Herbert, moves up into the top six ahead of his teammate Alessandro Zanardi, who is now seventh. And in eighth position, Philippe Alliot-Babazza is ninth, Suzuki is 10th, and Badoa, 3 laps behind, is in 11th place ahead of Fittipaldi. Well done.
Well, I wonder if Senna's retirement has anything to do with the pop, the funny noise we heard from his engine a few laps ago. Remember, we pointed that out, wondering whether it was actually an engine misfire or maybe a gearbox problem on the automatic gearbox. But he appears to stop mechanically as JJ Leto tried to get inside teammate Wendlinger in the Saubers, but fails there. And ahead of him, Martin Brundle has got past the very obstructive Aguri Suzuki, and so he'll be happy to have Suzuki behind him as a sort of cushion. And that looks like somebody having a bit of spin. Babazza.
Once again, it's Aguri Suzuki who's the problem. Alesi waving to his Ferrari Tifosi fans as he sadly walks in for the second year running, having gone out at the same corner. Now, Suzuki has got Wendlinger behind him. Suzuki is either 1 or 2 laps down. And there is the footwork, the red and white car. Behind him, the black Sauber in now 4th position. In 5th position, I'm sorry, just ahead of JJ Leto. The top 6 now on lap 44. Alain Prost 50 seconds ahead of Schumacher, so Prost really can coast home if he can keep it going. Up to 3rd comes Brundle, to 4th comes Wendlinger, to 5th comes Leto, to 6th Johnny Herbert.
Well, I'm with Michael Andretti down in the McLaren pit. Michael, you're having a great scrap with Wendlinger there. Things were looking good. Few changes of place, but then it looked like you braked a little bit too late down into Acqua Minerale. Was that the problem?
No, my brake balance was off. I had too much rear brake because it was set up for the wet, and I was trying to get to adjuster. I couldn't adjust it, and I was in trouble, and I had to go at him there, and I almost overshot the corner because I locked my rears. And then I was just following him into the next chicane, and they just locked on me, and I just got caught because I was going to try to have another go at him on the straightaway again because he seemed to be having problems there for some reason, and I was just trying to be careful and do that, and I just couldn't get to the brake balance adjuster. That was the problem.
So you weren't actually trying to overtake him at that point?
No, not at all.
Well, we desperately hope that you manage to get a finish soon, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, Aguri Suzuki, who is in 11th place and 2 laps behind, has now got a very impatient Carl Wendlinger behind him, who has got a very impatient JJ Leto catching him. So, again, Suzuki is the key to the placings.
Yes, and Wendlinger this lap and the previous lap is absolutely perfectly placed behind the footwork getting onto the straight, and despite the toe, the hole made in the air, that for him to go through, for Wendlinger to go through, the footwork just pulled away. And certainly there's a very poor straight line performance by the Sauber, and I can only think that they must have put maximum wing on for wet conditions, gambled on it staying wetter for more of the race, and this is rather hurting them.
16 laps left, and Alain Prost is well on his way to a record 46th Grand Prix victory. But 16 laps is a long way. We've seen Ayrton Senna go out. We're riding with Alain Prost now as he crests the rise. Now there is Michael Schumacher, 52 seconds behind the Frenchman in 3rd position. Coming down to the Acqua Minerale behind Luca Badoa, the the Formula 3000 European champion of last year, and still Suzuki holds off Wendlinger. Now, you remember how Alesi and Brundle just went straight past Aguri Suzuki after a bit of a struggle, admittedly, but Suzuki has had Wendlinger behind him for lap after lap after lap, which demonstrates the comparative experience of the Austrian. And J.J. Leto keeps closing up on his teammate in front in an identical car. Aguri Suzuki is now catching Fabrizio Barbazza, who is in 10th position, but Suzuki in the footwork is, Barbazza is 9th, but Suzuki is 10th. So you're seeing a race now, and neither of those two on the right, Barbazza, who is 9th, or Suzuki in the red and white footwork, who is 10th, and both of whom are ahead of the two Saubers who are trying to lap them, will want to give way. Suzuki will be wanting to get past Barbazza. Barbazza will be wanting to stop him, and neither of them, I suspect, will be paying all that much attention to their mirrors and the rapidly closing Saubers. So, Acqua Minerale. The middle car is Carl Wendlinger. The one on the right, at the back now, is J.J. Leto from Finland, Keke Rosberg's protégé, as is the unfortunate Mika Hakkinen, who is here again for the 4th Grand Prix, in which he will not have driven for McLaren because of Ayrton Senna deciding he's going to have another go. And the rumour is pretty firm now that Ayrton Senna has signed, or will be about to sign, for McLaren for the rest of the season, and that is indeed good news. But Jonathan Palmer is in the McLaren pit area, and I gather he's got news for us.
Well, I've just spoken to Ron Dennis of McLaren, and he confirms that Senna's problem was a hydraulic failure. Now, on the McLaren, the hydraulics power both the semi-automatic transmission and the active suspension, so it could have been either of those two systems that actually caused the car to stop.
Yes, well, that may have been a popping sort of gear change that we heard if it was starting to fail a few laps earlier. But nevertheless, Senna out of the race. Still, Aguri Suzuki fending off, as it were, the two Saubers. And I think it's inexperienced by the team. You can see they've got the 3-tier rear wings on, and that's maximum wing for the wet. Most of the other teams are running just a 2-tier. And big problems. Now, of course, Senna was all rather dramatic before this race here for Ayrton Senna.
Thanks, Ed. Look, that's Johnny Herbert at the back, and he's caught the two Saubers. Johnny Herbert in 6th position has caught J.J. Leto in the Sauber, who is 5th, and Carl Wendlinger, who is in 4th place. And they are all being held up by Suzuki and Barbazza's battle. And if I had to put my money on anybody as J.J. Leto attacks Carl Wendlinger, does he take him or not? And Johnny Herbert goes through. So Johnny Herbert is up to 5th, and J.J. Leto is up to 4th, and Johnny is on a charge. His highest ever finish in a Grand Prix is 4th. He's done that twice this year, and he's going to do it again.
49-61, we're winding down this, the San Marino Grand Prix. Prost still out in front from Schumacher, Brundle, Leto now. Herbert and Wendlinger. By gee, we've seen some names in the top runners tonight. AJ, I just want to talk about the Sauber we're looking at there. They look so impressive in the early parts of races, but they tend to drop off. And while in the break there was a very long pit stop at this part of the race.
Well, I certainly think it's late in the day to be making pit stops, but the other thing, they do seem to lose the speed as they go into the race, and I mean, it surely can't be overheating or anything like that, but their speed seems to have dropped off vis-a-vis what it was at the early part of the race, and I don't know, I'm a bit confused about that myself, Daz.
Well, it's a good dice now with Johnny Herbert joining into this group here.
Certainly is. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, they've done a fantastic result considering the amount of Grand Prix. I mean, here we are now with two of them in the top 6, and they've qualified in the top 6, and they've run in the top 6 virtually every Grand Prix they've done. So, great debut into Grand Prix racing for Sauber.
Back to Murray and James.
J.J. Leto is a very forceful driver, and at last has got a car worthy of his talent, going to be able to do anything.
Behind Herbert is his teammate, Alex Zanardi, who has come through from quite a low grid position. He was 20th on the grid, I think, and Zanardi having a look down the inside of his teammate, Herbert. Herbert won't be terribly impressed with that. He gives him a sharp little chop across the nose, and that puts Zanardi back a bit. but the Lotus is also not proving particularly quick on the straight. And Leto has got past. He's got through the traffic. Of course, he's still got Suzuki ahead. He's got past Barbaza.
So Alain Prost now is on his 51st lap. We're losing sight of the Frenchman because of this riveting struggle between Suzuki, who's 2 laps behind Leto on the lap score, but just ahead of him on the circuit, on the track itself. And so Leto now in the black car with the green helmet is in 4th position. Johnny Herbert is 5th. Right behind him in the second Lotus is Alessandro Zanardi, who is in 6th place. And because J.J. Leto's got past, he's pulling away. Now that's Suzuki into the pits. That has broken the bottleneck, if you can break a bottleneck. And Suzuki is into the pits in the footwork Mugen. And for a 10-second penalty. This is the first time we've seen this on television. But Aguri Suzuki, for some reason or another, has been deemed to be doing something wrong, and so now Johnny Herbert is still battling with Zanardi.
I think Zanardi got through there, and I'm quite sure, Mo, that he would have been deemed to have been holding up the leaders, people who are lapping him, and not giving them reasonable passage. I'm sure that's what it would be about, but J.J. Leto will probably say... very good, but why so late?
And on lap 52, Alain Prost now is a long, long way ahead of Michael Schumacher, 52 seconds to be exact. Martin Brundle is in 3rd position. In 4th position is J.J. Leto, and then the 2 Lotus cars, and I'm just checking to see, it's Zanardi now in 5th position ahead of Johnny Herbert. They have both got past Barbaza. Alio is in 7th position, but 2 laps behind in the Larousse Lamborghini. Barbaza is similarly 2 laps behind the leaders in 8th position. Aguri Suzuki, who's just had that 10-second stop-go penalty, is in 9th place, 10th. But 3 laps behind now is Wendlinger, 11th, and the last runner out of the 25 starters is Luca Badoa in the Lola. 3 laps adrift.
Now, just watching the straight line speed there, Zanardi towards the end of the straight was picking up the turn, closing in on the Sauber, but he seemed to lose quite a lot of ground in the first half of the straight on acceleration. Herbert seems to be struggling to hold on. I wonder if he's got some sort of a problem. And there is Alain Prost, leading by 50 seconds from Michael Schumacher. Wendlinger's gone back into the pits, still with a rough-sounding misfire.
Yes, as you rightly surmised, James and Murray, that was indeed a 10-second penalty for Suzuki for holding up traffic behind him. And indeed, it's actually started to rain again in the pits now.
Well, so we'll look at the circuit, but so far that racing line looks bone dry, and it's only been spots of rain since the start of the race, just occasionally, and that looks like Leto's car, or is it, oh no, Wendlinger walking away. There is Carl Wendlinger, so the engine misfired and finally cried enough. But another pretty good showing from a Sauber.
You know, it may have been some quite trivial problem. For instance, this morning in the warm-up, he had one of the electrical sensors for the traction control on his Sauber brake, and that dragged his lap times down quite a lot. But anyway, Alain Prost now is seemingly well on his way now. He's on lap 53 out of 61 to his 46th Grand Prix victory. This quite incredible little Frenchman. And Michael Schumacher looks as though he's settling for 2nd place, as you can see, nearly 43 seconds behind Prost. He's lapping a lot faster at the present moment, and that is... oh, there's the battle between Zanardi and Herbert, as Zanardi tries to take 4th place J.J. Leto. This is the most exciting scrap on the circuit. I remind you, there's only 11 runners left, But this'll do, thank you. J.J. Leto in 4th position. Here's a replay of it as they go into the Acqua Minerale. J.J. Leto gets it sideways momentarily, and Zanardi pulls up alongside him. Leto closes the door. Johnny Herbert tries to dive through on the inside and fails. And 4th, 5th and 6th come down into the approach to the Rivazza and then on to complete the lap, which they're doing now. So, Prost leads.
Yes, and this is the battle for 4th, and good acceleration the Sauber has away from the corner, and he picked up, but this time I think Zanardi is close enough to pick up the toe. He's getting, now the car's getting sucked along. He's going to have a go down the inside, and Leto, not quite. Leto held on well, held off the brakes as long as he dared. And Herbert there to pick up the pieces, but seem to be not as quick on the straight as Zanardi, and I think Herbert is running more wing than teammate Zanardi, and that's proving a handicap for him in these conditions. If you look at the car from the rear, you can see a bigger area of wing on Herbert's car, which means there's more angle on it. That's Zanardi there, and it's fairly visible.
Well, if the Lotus is finished where they are now, and there is Aguri Suzuki looking rather unhappy about something or other in the stationary footwork, and if the Lotus cars finish where they are now, it will be their 4th and 5th points finishes this year, because Zanardi finished 6th in Brazil and Johnny Herbert's had 2 4th places. But that 4th place here is occupied by Leto, with Zanardi pushing very hard indeed as they... And off! Off goes Zanardi, he's overdone it, and out of the race he goes as Herbert moves up.
Gone for the pits, I think, Murray. He went, did he not just go... No, he did, you're right, he did go off. Cool, crikey, he's whacked it around. I beg your pardon, I thought he'd headed straight into the pit road, but he probably doesn't realise he's on fire.
It seems strange that he's got a couple of mirrors on the car that he can't see that, but he's not going to be lasting much longer. And the big question is, oh, there's the problem. Off comes his left rear, and in the meantime, let us hope for everybody's sake, as he skates to a standstill in his Morgan Lotus with 3 wheels, that he's not spreading oil all over the circuit, because something has broken. It may have an oil line, or the oil radiator has been punctured, I suspect, from the flames that are coming out of the back. Meantime, up into... Now, this is affecting the placings, and Prost is leading, Schumacher 2nd, Brundle is 3rd, Leto 4th, just ahead of Johnny Herbert 5th, up into 6th place, potentially to score a point for Larousse for the first time for a long time, is Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman who drove for Peugeot last year in sports car racing. 7th is Babazza, and remember, he finished 6th at Donington, not a highly rated driver, but he's proving us wrong at Donington and here. 8th is Badoa, 9th is Suzuki, staggering round a bit at a time now because he's 4 laps adrift. And Carl Wendlinger out of the race. There's only 10 runners left out of the 25 who started, and Alain Prost, the race leader, is on his 56th lap out of 61.
Prost, Schumacher, Brundle, Leto, Herbert and Alliot now moves into the top spot. We've seen so many names change there, but there's been some radical performances here tonight, AJ.
Yeah, well, I think Zanardi, I think the old red cloud just descended over the brain. There's only several laps to go, and he probably thinks, well, if I keep this up, I envisage myself on the rostrum. You know, and I think he just made a stupid passing manoeuvre. But to come back onto the circuit like that is ridiculous, because for no other reason, coming back onto the circuit, he should have looked in his rear view mirrors to see if there was another car coming on him so he could get out of its way, and in doing so he would have seen all those flames. We might have a replay of this. I mean, yeah, so he just went in there a bit silly, and he's obviously gone in and clouted the wall, and if he would have done that, he would have thought to himself, perhaps, well, I might have done a bit of damage. Then when he drove back onto the circuit, he should have looked in the mirrors to see if there was other cars coming anyway, to see if he wouldn't get in their way. Plus the fact, if he didn't feel that, he's pretty insensitive bum on him. You know, the whole thing's just a bit of a joke, really.
I tell you what, he really cleaned the marshal up coming back, too. Just see the guy leap out of the way. All right, let's go back to Murray and James for the closing laps.
Michael Schumacher catches Johnny Herbert, who is 5th, and J.J. Leto is 4th, is for 4th place, because Brundle is well down. He's a 1 minute and 20 seconds behind Alain Prost and has been lapped by the race leader. So there's only 2 people on the same lap. This man, Michael Schumacher, who is 2nd, 36 seconds behind race leader Alain Prost. And Martin Brundle has been lapped. But as Martin Brundle came good in the Benetton last year at Imola in the San Marino Grand Prix, so he looks like coming good after a very barren patch in the first 3 races in South Africa and Brazil and at Donington 2 weeks ago. Now, can Johnny Herbert catch and pass J.J. Leto as they come down to the Rivazza and take from the Finnish driver 4th place?
Just 4 laps left in the race. Now, while this battle rages away, we'll keep an eye on it. Ayrton Senna had a pretty lively preparation for this Grand Prix because, as it turns out, because it was he thought, and Ron Dennis thought that they were losing their battle to try and get the air valve Ford engine, the good Cosworth, the best Cosworth engine that is run by the Benetton team, so that they could have parity with them. And when that wasn't looking good, it was decided that Ayrton probably shouldn't race to try and bring pressure to bear. And as late as Thursday morning, he was still in Brazil, thinking that he wasn't going to race, but various people were in contact, and he was, in fact, persuaded that he should come and race. Not a little bit of that was to do with the weather forecast. A lot of it was to do with the fact that ultimately he's a racing driver, and that's what he wants to do anyway. So he duly turned up, but he turned up, it was very much a last-minute thing, because he got a Thursday evening flight from Brazil, and he only arrived in Rome at 7:30 on Friday morning, and then with a bit of a mess-up of the transportation arrangements to fly him up to the circuit here in Imola, he arrived just minutes before the first practice went, but of course he was jet-lagged and not well. Herbert still pursuing, but he also running wet weather type quantity of downforce with his wings, making him inefficient in the straight line, and it's going to be a struggle for him. So the future situation, though, with Senna would be that, in fact, he hasn't done any sort of deal yet. He is still really anxious that the Ford engine should be part of it. That is what's holding him up. The financial arrangements, whilst are pretty much agreed, that's not a problem. The big problem is the technical side, that he wants the best engine, but I think that although he hasn't signed, I'm pretty sure that he will do the rest of the season, and certainly all motor racing enthusiasts have got to hope that, because we need somebody to challenge Alain Prost and make this a fight for the World Championship.
Michael Schumacher, 2nd place, the only man on the same lap as Alain Prost, who is now on his 59th lap and completing it. And this is very significant, because neither J.J. Leto nor Johnny Herbert, who have been lapped by Alain Prost, will go the full 61 lap distance, and that means that Herbert, well, he's blown his engine, I think. I saw a suspicious puff of smoke, and then it went again, and now it's gone yet again, and it looks as though Johnny Herbert's race has been completed on lap 58 for him. So out goes Zanardi, out goes Herbert, and that is rotten luck for Herbert, because with 2 4th places in the bag already this season, he's repeatedly been interviewed by Jonathan Palmer as a retiree, and if he gets in time, he probably will be again. But meantime, it's taken the pressure off number 30 there with 2 laps to go. Number 30 being J.J. Leto, and the highest he has ever finished is 3rd position, and that's Aguri Suzuki doing a bit of rally crossing, having rejoined the race after his 10-second stop-go penalty. And on lap 60 of the 61-lap race, there is race leader Alain Prost coming through, soon to start his last lap. 35 seconds ahead of Schumacher 2nd, a lap ahead of Brundle 3rd, Leto 4th, up into 5th position goes Alio, to 6th position goes Barbazza, who looks as though he's going to finish in the points for the 2nd race running, and we certainly would not have forecast that, because he started from 25th and last on the grid.
Yes, and bitter disappointment for Johnny Herbert. 2 laps to go he had when his engine went, and what a shame. There is Alain Prost, and really for Prost it's been a very straightforward win. Bit of pressure at the beginning of the race when he, with the wet, slippery conditions, remember he will have been only too aware that he's had two rather checkered outings in the two previous races with wet weather. That must have filled him with some apprehension, but it was a pretty straightforward wet-dry race in that the track dried steadily and quickly. Senna never really had a chance against the Williamses once the track was dry, until Damon Hill made his error, which was compounded by a braking problem. And a horrible misfire has just gone past us, which is J.J. Leto. And J.J. Leto, he's been struck by a misfire. Will he be able to limp round and hang on to his 4th place? He's got a big lead over Alio in 5th place, so long as the car keeps going, he should be able to get there. Prost, though, for him, once he got onto his slicks, the Williams there, oh no, I don't think that's going to go very much further. And Prost, once he got onto his slicks, he was off and away, and a very easy, straightforward win for him in the Williams Renault, with showing its most impressive superiority here at a power circuit. But the chassis as well is the best.
Well, Alain Prost proving that he certainly can get the job done, because he's within a whisker of winning his 46th Grand Prix and raising his point score by another 10 to close within 2 points of Ayrton Senna for the lead in the World Championship. Alain Prost wins the San Marino Grand Prix for the 3rd time in his career. He won in 1984, he won in 1986, and now he wins for Williams Renault. A very well-deserved, beautifully judged, and immaculately paced victory. But with the good news for British enthusiasts, and Michael Schumacher there coming through to finish in 2nd position. Now, the German is only in 6th position in the World Championship, so he certainly needs the points as he goes through to finish. And Martin Brundle has already finished 3rd because he had been lapped and does not go the full distance, so that's his first points finish for Ligier, and a very happy one for him. J.J. Leto, I think, is still going to be in 4th position because he was 2 laps ahead of Philippe Alliot, but that's subject to official confirmation, which means to say that Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman, by finishing in 5th place, will score 2 points and 2 badly needed points for the Larousse team. And Fabrizio Babazza for Minardi. That's Martin Brundle coming home in 3rd place in the Ligier Renault, so Renault-engined cars. Williams and Ligier finish 1st and 3rd. And the Ford-engined Minardi of Fabrizio Babazza finishes in the points, and that's the 3rd points finish for Minardi this year. A gallant, hard-trying little Italian team, and Alain Prost, hand out of the cockpit, will be justifiably delighted, because it means now that when they go to the Spanish circuit at Barcelona, where power is going to be important again, will give him the chance to close up on Ayrton Senna and hopefully, from Prost's point of view, take the lead. Fastest lap, incidentally, Alain Prost, 1 minute 26.12, misses by 28 thousandths of a second, beating Riccardo Patrizzi's all-time lap record. That's J.J. Leto being carried back to the circuit in Philippe Alliot's 5th placed Larousse.
The Italian fans, they love their sport, their motorsport, flocking in now for the presentation. Jonesy, a very exciting race, but probably all for the wrong reasons.
Well, it was a race of changing fortunes, that's for sure. I've never seen so many cars, so many different cars in the top 6, but you know, it was a shame to see Damon Hill go over, and decent-sized trophies too. I mean, they don't hold back on the old trophy department, the Italians, either. They really, as I've said this time and time, they do love their motorsport. They
certainly do, and I had the pleasure of being at your place not so long ago and looked at some of your trophies that you have in a room up there on display. And, I mean, they're enormous. They're that style of trophy, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, they do. They give wonderful trophies, and, you know, whilst I think my wife probably wishes they weren't there from time to time to polish them, they're always good to look back on.
There's an interesting shot here. You can just see the transporters in behind the paddock area there, and only a tiny area for those big transporters. But there they are. Well, Brundle will be very, very excited about that particular trophy. That's the biggest one he's got in a while, I would think.
Yeah, good result for Legier. They certainly need the points. I still think the chassis is a little bit disappointing, even though they haven't got the same spec Renault engine as the Williams. Nevertheless, he should have been a bit further up. Well, as you can see now, as a result of that, he's climbed a little bit closer. Alain Prost is on 10 points, Schumacher 6, Brundle in 3rd, JJ Leto and Elio and Barbates in the Minardi in a championship point. Now, because of that, Prost has climbed within 2 points of Ayrton Senna. He still leads, both with 2 victories. Damon Hill in 3rd place, Michael Schumacher 4th, and Johnny Herbert and Mark Blundell equal 5th with 6 points each. The Constructors' Championship, well, familiar story. Williams Renault 36, McLaren Ford 26, Benetton Ford 12, Legier, Lotus, and in 6th place Minardi and Sauber sharing that.
Still pretty interesting when you look at that Constructors' Championship. I mean, it's not as one-sided as it has been in the last couple of years. I mean, it's good to see Minardi. It's good to see other names coming into there, Sauber and so on. I mean, it's getting interesting. There's a couple of things I want you to talk about here that I noticed during the telecast. If you saw the Ferrari of Alesi pull up, there was a shot of the dashboard there, and as AJ said to me, this is what it looks like now, this new digital readout. And we'll show it for you. And AJ, as he pulls over here, we get a real good shot of what he's looking at.
Yeah, well, long since has gone the old original tachos, as we used to call them, the rev counters. Now they have a digital readout, and the driver in some circumstances can press buttons and he can get revs, he can get all the temperatures, how many litres of fuel he's got left, what he should and shouldn't be doing. There's a whole host of information that's fed through that digital readout in front of him.
The Italians let me down there. There was a nice tight shot of that. I was hoping we were going to get a little look at that where you could have maybe had a look in more detail. Never mind. The other thing I wanted to look at was the stop-and-go penalty, because it's the first time we've seen it happen in a Formula One race. Your opinions of this?
I don't think it's a bad idea, quite frankly. I think it's all very well and good to slap someone's wrist after the event, but it really doesn't get the message across. I think if they're driving unsportsmanlike, or if here we are now, we're seeing him come in, he has to come to a complete standstill, someone times it down for 10 seconds and then he's allowed to go. And what they're saying, well, you can see the countdown on the right-hand side, and what they're saying is, hey, look, you're driving in an unsportsmanship manner, you were being lapped, you were holding up a really good dice, we're now going to drag you into the pits and penalise you.
I reckon that's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, he'll know next time.
But I think it's really good. I mean, we said tonight, watching the race, there were so many radical drivers and so many radical moves. I mean, that is going to be in the back of their mind now. I think that's an excellent progressive move from the Formula One camp. OK, well, as we say each time round on Nine's Wide World of Sports, the big events just keep coming around. And let me tell you, there's plenty coming your way. The Spanish Formula One Grand Prix from Barcelona. That's Sunday, May 9, 10:30, but that's Eastern Standard Time. So check your local guides all around Australia for that. That should be a very